Hey everybody.
Hello.
Time for a props from the past. We have a fun one, a build that we teamed up on, although I would say that Britt did most of the work. We built a Probius, technically from Starcraft, but this is the Heroes of the Storm version.
So this was when Probius just got introduced to Heroes of the Storm and they had a cinematic.
Yes.
And he was adorable and he reminded me of Kirby a lot, and I really like Kirby.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make our own.
And it was, I just double checked, it was 2017, November 2017 when we did it. So this first, we did a pair of videos, we'll split them up. The first one's about 20 minutes long and it's mostly Britt working on the probe portion. The second part, which we'll do next week, is going to be mostly me. There's a cat fluff, I almost breathed that in. The second part is the base of it is an RC car that I put together so you could drive around. So we'll handle that next week, but let's dive in to the build, starting with it all done at Matter Hackers.
Look at that.
I hope so.
Oh my gosh, it still looks wonderful.
Like
Paint job is spectacular.
Thank you.
That's Joel.
It's called Last Minute
Joel's
Gold.
there. So we all met up the Wednesday
Dude, very last
before
minute.
BlizzCon at Matter Hackers for a meetup, and we got to drive this thing around. It was, and this is the first time it was all put together too, and it worked.
This was probably the first time I've rewatched this video
Me
since
too,
we
yeah.
published it.
Yeah.
Because it was a whirlwind project. The one thing I remember is I wanted to make it be able to be all taken apart for transport. And I tried to do magnets, and for that huge structure, it was just taking so long. And I ended up using Velcro, I think, at the last second for some of the parts, and I should have just used Velcro for the whole thing.
Yeah,
but,
it worked great.
Yeah, but I learned a lot.
Greetings, fellow maker.
Look who it
In this
is.
video, I'll show you how we made Probius, the brave little
Back-
probe from Heroes
back
of the
before
Storm.
we moved
It seemed like a pretty
out of the
unique idea,
basement.
something that would make people smile, and I'd never seen anyone do something quite like this before.
Yeah, so those are
And
clips
what
from
are the odds that someone
that
else would
cinematic.
have this at
Yeah.
BlizzCon
or
also?
screenshots. Oh, and you have your little.
I started this build less than a month
Oh yeah,
before
BlizzCon
and
had their
I
own
a few
Probius that they made.
goals.
We didn't
I
know
wanted
they were
Probius
making
to
it. They
move
didn't know
around.
we were making it.
Yeah, so it's really hard to believe that we made similar things and we didn't know that each other were making them, but it's true.
Yeah,
Like,
it totally is.
when we released, in the beginning of the episode, you saw the shot of Probius driving around. We put a little clip of that up on social media saying like this was like,
The day before, right? It was
Yeah.
that Wednesday.
and this was the first time we showed anyone that were working on it. And the Heroes of the Storm
yeah.
team contacted us and they were like, is that ours? Is that our one?
Allegedly, it caused a little bit of a panic on their end, but it wasn't theirs. They knew
they-
that one was being built by a different company
Yeah.
that they hired to do it.
Mhm.
But so everyone was very surprised.
Every year at BlizzCon, they feature one character of each IP. So like a character from Overwatch, a character from Heroes of the Storm. So I knew Probius was being featured, and Probius got their own trailer.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
all I knew. And Bill always wanted to make an RC vehicle.
And I want to make
thing.
more.
Yes.
We weren't sure if they were going to let us drive this thing into the con, but we saw the BlizzCon official Probius go in. We just followed him. No one stopped us. It was awesome.
I think I even got weapons checked.
Yeah.
So like Probius's little fin got a little ribbon on it saying that he was not armed.
He's
That's
not a
some kind
danger
of
to anyone.
roller Stand,
Yeah.
So he needed to be lightweight. The pieces would have to fit in my airport checked baggage, so everything
And
would
it
have
did.
to break down and come apart and fit in the
We
luggage.
flew with all that.
BlizzCon is a low light convention, so any costumes that have lights look extra
This
cool
intro is great.
inside,
Good job,
so
Pesme.
I know.
definitely Probius
This is
had some
fabulous.
LEDs.
And I imagine this was all filmed after Blizz. I mean, it was obviously because we had the
You
footage.
can see the plushie. The Heroes of the Storm team gave us this.
That's right,
At BlizzCon,
yeah.
so it's
One of the
extra
fins
special.
and eyes to be posable. At
And
least by
it's got
hand,
cat
so I
fur
can
all
change
over
the
it.
expression of Probius a little bit for pictures. Starting this build so close to the convention, I know I wouldn't have any time for animatronics or robot
Yeah, we had a lot of
but having a
ambitious
little bit
ideas,
of
but
manual
I think we
expression
dialed
changing
it
would
into
be really fun.
a good
Thanks
compromise.
to Bill, the rolling base was upgraded to an RC car base. You can watch the video on that build up there. This build will cover the foam fabrication.
I'm guessing a little
assembly,
card
and painting of
Yeah.
Probius.
popped down.
First, I had to figure out Probius's
Hey,
size
oh, I
and
miss
shape.
Maya.
Yeah,
Since I
well,
have a 3D modeling background,
I have a
even
complicated
3D
relationship with
mock-up
Maya.
helps me
It's
understand
my
the rounded
comfort.
shapes
It's my
and build
comfort
scale.
program.
What's even faster for me is to pull the character model straight from the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'll link to a tutorial video I followed on that process in the description.
It's really handy to get
Once
the
I
3D
had
models
Probius's
right from the
in-game
game.
character model,
Yeah,
I could
usually
take the model
not for
straight to
directly
Pepakura
printing,
Designer to create a
but
flat
for
paper
Pepakura, it
template
can be
to
really
follow
useful.
for my foam
Yeah.
build.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of extra
And again, mostly as like a
overlapping
place to get
geometry, which
started,
I
like a
don't
jumping
need,
off
and
point.
It's a pain to sort through.
Video game models,
So first, I imported the
do
model
not-
into Maya, which is the 3D
they don't even
program I'm
consider the
comfortable
physical
with.
realm.
But you can also use other polygon modeling programs like Blender. In Maya, I can simplify the geometry and only keep the parts I want to transfer into templates. Also,
This is
Probius
where
symmetrical, so
having
I only need to
decades
create
of
half
polygon
the
modeling
template and
experience
then
comes
flip the
into-
template over for
Yeah,
me
just to be able to
play.
simplify
I
shapes.
ordered an
Yeah.
acrylic
Ma-
dome on
manual in a very
Amazon and
specific
used
way.
the distance
Yeah,
tool in
see,
Marcus.
the dome determined the size of the whole thing. Like that's the one found object.
The basically is eye lens that you purchase.
Yeah.
Everything else is scaled around that. Yeah.
That's great.
Maya to size the entire 3D model to the dome size. This
Happens a
also
lot
let
in
me
prop
figure out
costume
the inner eye
making.
dome
Like
size
there's
as
one
well.
part you have to
The
buy, like a
entire
perfect
height of
clear
the scaled
dome.
3D model will
And you
be
may have
used when
a
I
range of
transfer the
sizes
model
you
to
can get.
Papercraft.
So get the one that's as
For a
close to what you
designer,
want,
I
and then build
unfolded
everything
the
around
model and
that.
changed the height scale. Then reorganized all the unfolded parts, removing the overlapping paper tabs since this will be made out of foam. This model is a video game low polygon model.
A lot
it
of,
has hard angles in some areas that
oh,
I
it
want
looks
to
nice
be
and tidy,
smooth
Britt.
curves.
Nice work.
These paper
Thank you,
templates
I had
will
no
be
memory of
reference
doing
that I'll
this.
alter after I print out the pieces.
A lot of times, if you're looking for
Having the 3D model open in
Pepakura
Maya as a
patterns
reference, I
for
began
foam, if you look up
modifying the
Pep
areas
for
of the
foam,
templates that I
you'll
wanted to
see
be
people
more
have
round.
modified their
Some of the
Pepakura
angles
patterns
I wanted
for
to
foam.
keep to create hard edges, but
Excuse me,
others
that's
are
kinda what
supposed
Britt's
to be
doing here.
smooth
I don't know if I
curves.
did this
I guessed
project
at a lot
first or
of
the
this,
Surtur
and
skull.
most of my templates didn't fit together well at all. But that's what contact cement is for. The acrylic dome arrived, and I started figuring out the templates for the eye socket.
Look at that, it's
I don't
that
know if
easy.
the
It's
EVA
probably your
font is
first try,
used for
too.
pieces.
Yeah, you could. It's that's the one regret I have for this build is all the seams are super
Each part is
obvious. I didn't
heat-formed
take
into
any
rough
time to
shape
fill
help with the
anything,
gluing process.
but that's fine.
This is one of those
Most
projects
of the
where
foam in
like
this build was attached
people are
with
like, wow, it
contact
looks
cement.
really cool.
This
And
instant
from our
bond
end, we're like, you have no
helped
idea
force
what
the
it took to
pieces
even
together,
finish
even if they weren't
it
quite
in
the right
time.
But
I
yeah,
didn't
I would
create
have.
registration marks.
I-
I just tacked the
I
start
should have either
and
made the
end
seams more
edges
obvious,
and
look
slowly
intentional,
brought the seams
or
together.
take the time to get rid of them.
Yeah.
The papercraft templates got ordered into
We all
build
think
sections.
similar
This
things
part
about
is
every
Probius's
project we ever
building
finish.
area. I already had a big
Look at those
stack
floor
of EVA
mats.
foam floor mats,
Those are
so I used those for
thick.
a large portion of this build. Pepakura
Meaty
Designer
floor
doesn't
mats.
account
Are those
for
the ones
foam
that Andrew gave
thickness.
us?
Yes.
I had to
Nice.
alter the templates or cut away
We helped the buddy
extra
in
foam as I went.
return
I also tried to think ahead
like,
about where I wanted the hard angles
24
to remain by creating hinges
sheets of
or
floor
cutting
mats
double
showed up at our
angles.
house. One day it just, oh, thanks, buddy.
Anytime I
There were
needed
these
to attach
really
something
high
to the
quality,
foam textured
nice
side,
floor
the
mats.
texture was sanded off.
Remember
for
that
better
little rotary
adhesion.
tool? Well, that thing didn't last long.
We ran that thing into the ground. Poor thing.
Yeah. You know, we've
More
only
contact cement helped
killed
me
2 of
align the
our
sides of
rotary
the belly
tools.
pieces. This
I've
was the
killed
first piece of the
several
build where I
friends'
tried
rotary
to smooth out
tools.
the 3D model template pieces, and the curves didn't go together cleanly, but it's on the
Hi,
bottom,
Willow.
so it's fine.
Do you remember when we were working on this?
As the
I have a
body
picture of
segments
her
were created, they
sitting
got
on the
adjusted to fit
templates.
Oh my
together,
goodness.
but weren't permanently attached.
Yeah, this is where
Any
this is where
areas
Britt
that
was
needed
really starting to
angles
figure
were
out
marked
like
to be a
places to
double cut,
connect
but I was
permanently
really
or
just
not
guessing at the angles.
so that it would fit in the storage.
Sanding would help clean
That's
up
probably
these
a
edges
lot
later.
of the
Quite a bit of pressure was needed to stick
planning
some
and
of the
figuring
foam
out was
shapes
doing to
together.
that.
If I used my heat gun after gluing, I had to be careful of heating these seam areas too much. The heat would cause the seams to start separating.
These are some really wild forms that
For
you're
every part I made,
able to pull
I
off
checked
with the
to
foam.
see if it would fit in one of our luggage crates.
Yeah, so this is exactly how we work, especially with props
Even
and
though
stuff.
Probius's
Before
form
it's
is hollow,
finished,
there
check
was
to see if
still
it fits
a
in the
lot of
luggage
parts.
before
And
you
I
start
had to
painting
figure out
it.
attachments,
You
which
really don't
took
want to have to start
far
cutting pieces
longer than I
apart
imagined.
after it's painted.
My thought was to lock the pieces together with magnets and, after painting, add Velcro strips to stop any shearing force on the magnets. A sharpened pipe marked the magnet location.
Magnets are
and
great
a disc of
for
foam was cut away with a
some
knife.
stuff, but
Sanding the back of a magnet and super gluing
It'll
it
keep two
was a
things held together in this
surprisingly strong
direction,
bond. I may
but
have
side to
messed up
side,
the
if you can have some
polarity
sort of
once or twice in the
mechanical
build,
lock,
and
even
I had
if
to
one of
cut
the
away
magnets
the
is
surrounding
recessed
foam
into
to
the
pull
other, so it
magnet
can go
free.
down into it, that's going to make
The
it a
jointed side
lot
of each
stronger.
magnet was positioned by
That's a
pressing
trick
the
there.
connection area together.
Oh, there
with
you
the
go.
loose magnet
That's really
attached
good.
to the glued magnet. This leaves a circle impression, marking the home for the loose magnet. A combination of foam tabs and edge magnets seem to hold these parts together pretty well.
It's one of those cases where
Most connections had to be cut and sanded to line
you
up
put all of
properly, but it
that
was
together with the
awesome
magnets,
to
you're like,
see
this is
Probius
fine,
start
but then
taking
as soon as
shape.
it like gets bumped or nudged or whatever,
I
you
had
see it's
two
not quite as
tan-colored
strong.
floor mats left from Sweeperbot's broom
What's
build,
the saying? Like,
so I
no
used
plan
these
survives
for the
first
eyebrows.
implementation?
Yeah.
Something like
Most of
that.
these templates needed bevels, especially on
this is
the bottom
Sweeperbot
panel of the
broom
eyebrow.
tan.
I ended
That's
up having
right.
to sand even a more extreme angle for
Forgot
these
that's where the
pieces
rest
to
of
fit
those
together.
went.
I was scrounging for floor mats.
Contact cement was brushed onto all the edges except for the bottom panel. I left these separate since I hadn't decided on how Probius.
Like, I think there's a picture somewhere of the floor mats on the ground and me having cut a perfect circle out of one of them.
Like right out of the middle.
Yep.
The fins ended up keeping their shape really well, but the corners were a pain to glue together with all of that extra material. It's fine, I'll sand the edges later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We called Probius's top fin the Mohawk, and I tried using a roll of thinner 6mm foam for this part.
Yeah, a lot of times
There's also strips of
for
lighting in
finer
the front and
details,
sides of the
you
Mohawk,
really need
which
to
are
use just
easier
thinner
to cut
foam.
into the foam before gluing
Yeah, I was just
all the pieces
working with
together.
mats
Yep.
for a lot of this, but yeah, it looks like I had some thinner
It
stuff.
was much easier to form this thinner foam into shape,
Mhm.
but the Mohawk sides are
nice.
a little bendy. Later, I glued in a rectangle bridge of floor mat to keep the sides from squishing inwards. Probius has a circular disc on either side of his body. I probably should have made these templates from scratch. My modified low poly templates weren't evenly round, and these curves had to be heat formed and sanded, eventually cut apart a little bit and re-glued to make
That's
them
a really good
uniformly
point.
round.
If the thing that you're making is just a very regular shape, like circle, it might be more beneficial to just try and extrapolate. Oh, there's a cat. Extrapolate like a perfect circle form instead of like messing around with polygons that probably started as a circle but then got pushed and prodded into some weird shape.
Yeah. It wasn't perfectly round
No.
for whatever reason. I don't know.
Oh, here's your
A good
circle.
old bucket was the correct size to trace the inner circle rings.
Perfect.
I'm not a fan of cutting circles by hand, but the gradual curves of a larger circle are a bit easier as long as I kept a sharp knife and took my time.
Yeah, that's the
I'll still
key.
need to sand the uneven edges later.
I
There's
think
a
it's a
smaller
lovely
circle
circle.
detail that got traced with
Thank
a
you.
smaller bucket and was partially scored into the foam. This whole shape needed to
It's
be
our popcorn
curved,
bowl.
so I stole a bowl from our kitchen, heated up the foam, and pressed the
There
piece
you
into
go.
shape.
Yeah, that's a really
There's a lot
good
of good foam
technique.
smithing techniques
Yep.
in this video.
Those
Picture
bowls are
foam
from
like this will
IKEA,
look-
by the way. They come in several sizes, and they're really good for craft projects. Ah, who just clawed me? Willow. What was that about?
Thanks for wanting to get in your lap.
She just clawed at my knee.
Oh, you guys.
Want to keep the new curved form.
Some cat drama. There was
The
cat drama
connecting
last
cylinder
night.
for these side circles has evenly spaced
Wow.
grooves,
Hey.
which I measured and partially cut into the foam. Once heated and formed into a cylinder shape, the
Oh, that's
grooves
fun.
opened up and looked awesome.
Yeah, I love doing stuff like that.
Of course, my pieces didn't quite fit together,
Not at
so
all.
I cut away foam until
It's like-
at least some of the cylinder was
Saw a
touching
picture
the
recently.
connected
Some kid, some 3-year-old, had a foam like alphabet that was all cut out, and then you're supposed to put the letters in the correct. And they put all the letters in, but each one was in the wrong letter. It was just mashed in there.
That's a great thing about foam is you can match things together, but they put like the V and the A spot.
Yeah,
It was so
yeah.
good. So good.
Fantastic.
Yes. The rest of the gaps will get braced
Pretty
with
much the same
overlapping
thing.
foam strips. The trusty bucket happened to be the right
Trusty
size for
bucket.
the inner eye circle as well. The base rests inside the dome, which will be permanently
Yeah, those are
attached
definitely
after all
floor
the details are
mats.
added.
Mhm.
That inner one.
Yeah, lighter gray.
Not as nice from
Smaller
Harbor
dome
Freight,
is
Yeah,
probably.
140
That's a Harbor
millimeter
Freight
clear
gray, I can
plastic
tell.
ornament. Keep an eye out for these ornaments around holiday season sales. They're super handy for prop builds.
We still have the other half of that. I
think so.
I saw it when we were
left the strip of foam
moving.
holding the ornament extra wide, so there would be an attachment point for some LEDs. This eye part
This is very
supposed to light
thorough,
up
Brett.
blue.
Yeah. forgot how many parts
A
there
compass
were.
marked an inner circle to cut free. The hole poked
Gosh,
in
there's
the
so many
foam
projects
just
we've done
fine,
that are
since
like
that small circle isn't
monumental
used.
undertakings.
This is where the plastic
Or
ornament assembly
like you were
will be
saying
glued in
before,
place.
you watch it and I'm like, I have no memory of it.
In the reference, it
was
looks
just a
like
hustle
this
the whole
eye cut
time.
is a lens, and there's a moving aperture that closes over the lens. It took me a few tries to get a template that seemed like the right size, and check the fit before rounding over the edges.
Oh, new rotary tool.
At
Yeah,
first, just the
got that
edges
board
of the foam
amount.
strips were glued together, so I could line up all the overlapping parts. Then the foam circles were locked together forever with contact cement.
Mm-hmm.
After painting, the ornament will be hot glued to the foam. The eyelid was patterned straight off the acrylic dome with tape. I added seams so this pattern could lie flat, and also added registration marks, which is super helpful when gluing these pieces back together.
Yeah, it is.
The tape pattern was transferred to cardstock and traced onto 6mm foam. I cut outside the Sharpie lines to make the foam eyelid a little bigger, leaving room for lid movement over
Good
the dome.
idea.
I think I could have gone with thinner foam for that, but that's probably all I had.
Yep.
So the eyelids had room to open. I used a metal cutting wheel and my rotary tool to carefully cut away the lip. I took my time and lightly cut a few passes around the dome before cutting all the way through. I still wasn't sure how I'd make the eyelids be manually adjustable. I just have to figure it out after painting, since there were still a few more detail pieces to add, and I was running short on time.
That's a theme for this whole
There are
thing.
two light dome things on either side.
Would have been nice to not have to do that. You know, like actually spend months on it.
But
Yeah.
I cut a hole for the electronics just in case. I ran a sanding drum all the way through the 6mm foam to create the light up hole areas, and used the
Yeah, I think
move
I think I would have just
working time
punched
I
it
did
out with
CA
a
glue to wiggle the front pieces in place.
Oh, with the metal tube.
metal tube now, but that worked.
Mm-hmm.
The last part of the assembly was adding magnets to the two side cylinders and the front eye socket.
Just realized that we
With all the foam fabrication complete,
these
I
videos came
started
out after
cleaning up all the
BlizzCon
edges with a
because we
sanding
shot it
drum
all, but we
and
did
a
not have
grinding
time to
bit on
edit
my
it all
rotary tool.
before BlizzCon.
Yeah.
We were probably filming that Tuesday before we flew out.
There's some fine line details on the fins that I sketched out and tried to make the opposite sides match. Extending the knife blade just a little helped control the depth of the cut.
Got a different color foam on the bottom there because that's what we had.
After heating, the lines didn't open up as much as I wanted, so I enhanced the details with a small grinding bit. Also smoothed out the foam fuzzies with a larger grinding bit. If you're adventurous, you could also carefully use a blowtorch to remove the foam fuzzies. The nice part
There's
about
life on
these
the edge.
details is, since the fins are on opposite sides of the body, no one will know that these lines aren't exactly symmetrical.
But they are. They totally
Except for
are.
you guys, but you won't tell anyone, will you? I needed to cut a curved detail line into these cylinders, so I lowered the compass needle and held the
Nice.
needle against the edge as
Super
a guide
handy. There's so
to
many
trace the
great
line.
tips in this video,
There's
Britt.
just a pencil on this compass, but it's enough to make a nice indent to follow with a knife. For the fin and eyebrow attachments, we decided to try out 1/4-inch aluminum armature wire, which is
right.
lightweight and bends fairly easily.
It's soft, so it doesn't
Bill
want
designed and
to
3D printed attachments
work
for the
hard and
wires.
weaken and
The
snap,
first couple
so you can keep
channels
bending
were
it back and
ABS
forth.
filament backed with more plastic for strength. The later versions of these attachments were printed in nylon and didn't need extra plastic
right.
reinforcement.
I
All of these wire panel attachments were added
got a
after
bunch of
painting,
spool
except
of
for
nylon
the
filament
eyebrows.
from
These panels needed to be inside of the
Ultimaker.
floating eyebrow.
and that stuff is
From our tests,
super
we
strong.
found out that ABS and nylon both hot glue to foam really well, as long as the plastic surface is sanded first.
So that attachment's
Also punched out
important
for
to
the
make sure it
different
doesn't
armature
tear.
wires to
To have
Yeah.
a really nice
through the
solid
body.
attachment.
a big
But I
flat
did
area
that after
connected to the
painting.
foam.
So I could wrench on it
I
and it would
tried
be
sanding
fine.
down my seams, but some of them weren't flush, especially on the belly
Most
panels.
weren't flush.
2mm foam detail pieces were glued over the seams, but the foam is thin enough to still showcase the seam lumps. But like I said before, it's on the bottom and isn't too noticeable. If there's one thing I wish I had more time to do in this build, it's clean up the seams.
Yeah.
This project was down to the wire, so I just
It's funny how
hoped
that's what
that
you
sealing the
remember,
foam
right?
would help smooth
I'll
out
always
everything.
remember the parts I'm bummed about
Yeah.
with my projects.
Speedball acrylic paints mixed with polylatex 60 worked great. So I thought I would
Oh
try
yeah,
that again. but
polylatex.
use
They
a
don't even
metallic
make that
pole.
stuff anymore.
I was hoping to get the base paint finish I wanted suspended in the latex, which would be great since it wouldn't rub off. We did
Boy,
some
this type
small
of work,
tests that
we've done
seemed
so
to be
much like latex
promising.
spraying in our
I even
backyard.
mixed in extra
Just
gold
takes
sparkles with
forever.
cast magic
It's
powder.
Also,
great, but
like,
The problem was there were so many foam pieces
yeah,
to cover.
I will disagree with my past self. I thought the gold didn't cover because there was so much foam, but I think what it is the metallic powders, when you put it inside latex, it gets rid of the shine. Like it makes it matte, so it just looks like yellow. So like I did a lot of like layers. I'm like, why isn't this working? I used up all my paint, but then we brushed on more. Like you'll see, it'll be fine.
To a full armor cosplay build. And I went through the entire
I could have just used
container of
yellow,
gold paint.
just
It
straight
didn't
yellow.
cover as well as the non-metallic speedball paints, and I could still see through the transparent latex down to the foam base.
and this was thrown into a blender. I love it.
Yeah.
This was like a few days before we had to leave, so it was definitely, what do we have that we can finish this thing? And we just started throwing paint in a blender.
Making sure the pigment
I think I was hoping the
really
latex would help fill in the
latex.
seams too, but it doesn't go
I
on
only
thick
had
enough
time
for
4
that.
layers, 2 sprayed on with a critter gun and 2 brushed on. The brush helped fill in some of the low spots. The next time I try this method, I think I'll add a few layers of normal pigment with the latex, like a black or a brown, before trying to add layers of metallic.
Or red if I'm doing gold.
Since the gold finish was still pretty
Yeah, that's a good
transparent,
idea.
we ended up brushing on a layer of acrylic gold and silver. It was nice to add a little bit of texture to the finish with some brush strokes and stippling.
That's my hand.
Yeah,
Brown acrylic
you were
was
helping
brushed
with this
into
at
the
this point.
recessed areas.
It wouldn't have
Then
gotten done
some
if you didn't
shadows
help.
and tarnished areas were
Ooh, it's looking real
airbrushed on
shiny
with
now.
watered down Angelus brown acrylic. After the paint dried, the finish was protected with a light layer of gloss varnish.
Ooh, yeah.
For
Nothing's
the
in
Velcro
focus.
attachments, we have these awesome rolls of industrial hook and loop.
That's
I
the
picked up these
good
rolls
stuff.
on the
It's too good
website.
sometimes.
Yeah.
It's great to cut off whatever size I need, and the soft loop side of the material has
As far as I'm
more
concerned, it's the only
cloth-like
hook and
back
loop worth
that
buying.
hot glues straight to
It's just so
foam
great
pretty well.
to have
I
one of
glued
side
the
be all
loop sides
fabric,
all over
so you can
Probius's
just hot glue it
magazines
and won't
and
peel
lock
off.
down the connections with strips of the hook side.
That's what really kept it together, was that Velcro. I think I could have skipped all the magnets.
Probius Velcros too, and it seems super sturdy.
Here
None
we
of the
go.
pieces came apart in the test driving.
It's amazing, like, he is ridiculously light,
Bill also
he has
added
so
all
much
the
mass,
lighting to Probius.
but you
Thank
can
you,
just pick
Bill.
him up, no
We
problem. It's
purchased
so
strips
light.
of 12-volt blue LED strips, some connectors so the lighting can
Bill
be
did all the
disassembled
lighting for this.
transport,
Did.
and used a 12-volt
It wasn't
rechargeable
complicated,
battery
there was
pack.
just a lot of them.
These light
Yeah.
strips can be snipped apart in groups of 3 and resoldered for
Yeah,
areas
everything
that
just
don't need
goes
full
to-
strips of
it's-
lights.
Like, there's this octopus of connectors that just get fed in all parallel to a 12-volt battery.
And that whole stand assembly, you'll see in the next video we go over.
Yeah.
Because Bill did that whole thing.
But we
To
put a
diffuse the
crap
lights,
load
I
of those
used
LEDs on there, and they
PETG
look
plastic
awesome.
sheets and sanded the interior. PETG is
And the
flexible
battery lasts
and doesn't
a
crack
long
easily,
time. Longer than
and
the
if
car
it's thin enough,
batteries
you can
that
even
do.
cut it with scissors.
So we
For
had
the circle parts, I
PETG
accidentally
plastic,
used
which
acrylic
is,
sheets.
you can flex a lot, it
was
doesn't
in an
snap.
unlabeled scrap sheet bin.
And
they ended
Yep.
up
I was talking about it right there. Those discs, we didn't realize when we were making it were acrylic, not PETG. Those are super brittle, and I think one of them cracked like on arrival. It looked
super
fine,
brittle.
but
one of them cracked in transport.
yeah.
So yeah, the PETG was much better for this build than the acrylic. The sanded plastic was hot glued to the foam, then lightly airbrushed with Kratex pearlized blue paint.
Ooh.
Look at
This way
that.
the
That's
panels
awesome.
look blue even when the lights aren't on.
Yeah, there you go.
It was around midnight, the night before we were flying
That's
out to
about right.
BlizzCon, and I realized I wouldn't have time to make the eyelids
This is a cute
posable.
story.
Yeah.
I was about to just hot glue the eyelids in place, but our buddies Eric from Core Geek Creations and Sanit from Spicy Tie Design were visiting and took on the task.
They were
used
headed to
some Sakura
BlizzCon.
screws
They
and
were.
plastic connections for the eyelid rotation and Velcroed the acrylic dome into the eye socket. Thank
Yay.
you so much, guys. I think the posable eyelids add a lot of
Yeah,
character.
it
to
really
Probius.
does. Yeah, he both his eye can tilt
much
up and
wire
down,
attachment
and it can
panels
open and
got hot
close.
glued into-
And you can get a lot of expression out of how much of the top lid is showing and how much of the bottom lid is showing and which way he's looking.
And it's all manual puppeting, but for photos, it looks
It
great.
does, yeah. Or even for we did some video gimmickry.
all the fin pieces, and they just friction fit on
This
the
is definitely
fin
at the
side,
con.
so they can be removed for
Yep,
travel
this was at the
and
convention.
filming shenanigans.
Alright, go ahead.
The armature wire held up great all weekend, and it was fun to pose the fins in different positions. The side cylinders and front eye are only held together with magnets, no Velcro, so we could access the electronics. The eye socket is kind of a pain to wedge into place, but once the top and bottom magnets line up, it doesn't want to move. Bill's metal frame creation lets us easily transfer Probius from the RC car base to our backup wheelie base, which is an IV stand I purchased on eBay.
The backup wheelie base is what we did not bring this home. We left it for Blizzard. It lives at Blizzard now.
Yeah, we gave it to the Heroes of the Storm team.
Yeah,
it was actually the 3D modeler who modeled the Probius model in Heroes of the Storm. We kind of foisted it on him. We're like, here, it's your problem, and I think it's at BlizzCon somewhere still. But yeah, it's weird seeing this project again because I haven't seen it since.
I kept the RC car base and gave them the cheap wheelie base.
But Probius got done in time to travel to BlizzCon. The final assembly didn't even happen until we arrived in California, and luckily, everything held together great all weekend. I'm so glad Bill had time to add the lights. It looks super awesome in the dark.
Yeah.
Those 12-volt LEDs are super bright, and they lasted for
I love
5
that
hours.
photo. Yay!
We had so much fun driving Probius around BlizzCon. We even met another Probius.
Their Probius is so shiny.
I had so much fun driving that thing around.
Speaking of Blizzard, we got to meet some of their team, and we gave our Probius to them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have been.
I love being able to film it like that, where the base is cut off, and it really does look like he's just floating around.
Someone pointed out that the shape of the base looks like his shadow.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think that works out great.
This ended up being a crazy build, but I am so happy with what we accomplished in such a short amount of time. I have to give a shout out to all you builders out there who travel on airplanes with giant costume builds. I haven't tried to do that before, and it was pretty difficult figuring out how to break things down and have them reassemble. I feel like I learned a lot, which is always great. Thank you, Bill, for making the RC car base for Probius. It was so much fun watching him scoot around the convention, and was way better than having to manually push him everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video. There's a few other videos based around this Probius build. A video on how Bill made the RC car base.
I think we have the videos show up in the
last
20 seconds.
Yeah, like end cards. Yeah, and they don't. YouTube doesn't do that anymore.
Probius's adventures at BlizzCon. It is super cute. I'll see you next time in whatever crazy.
Well, they'll still be there. It's just you downloaded this video.
That's true. That's true.
Yay!
Awesome,
man. Like in the next after the next video, we'll show off the cute little video we did where Probius was going around BlizzCon and talk more about the convention, because it was a pretty cool time. I was pretty sick as well.
Yeah, that too.
Probably because I didn't get a lot of sleep when I was working on this build.
That was super duper fun. Boy, I don't remember any of that. And I'm glad we filmed it. It was a whirlwind right before BlizzCon, but it was a ton of fun to drive that thing around.
Right, how many costumes or props have you guys made that you did in such a quick time frame, didn't document any of it, and someone asks you, how would you make that? And you're like...
remember. All right, thanks you guys so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this look down memory lane. Again, next week we'll do the other part, and it'll be super fun. Thank you as always for the support. We really appreciate it, you guys. And we'll see you next week with some more tomfoolery from the basement.